everybody, this is Pretty from It's a Pretty World. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm using a Rubbernecker stamp called the tool set and the coordinating dies to make two interactive cards. So I'm starting off the first one with some stamping, and I'm gonna take a couple of images, not a couple of images actually, just this image. This is a toolbox image from that stamp set, and I'm going to stamp that using Memento Tuxedo black ink, and the reason for that is because I want to use my Copic colors to this. Now I want this toolbox to be bright red, and I also want it to look like it's quite aged and old and used up. So what I did is, and this, I'm guessing this is a wood toolbox that the dad decided to color red. Anyway, so usually the Copic color reds are really deep, bright reds, and I didn't want the toolbox to look very deep, bright red as if it was fresh and new. I wanted that used look. So what I did is I added some BV23 and BV20 at the bottom in the places where the shadows would be, and what it did is it muted down the brightness of the red, and it almost made it look very dingy, as if it was old and dirty and has been used for a long time. And then I went over it with R45, and then I blended that with R24 and R22. Pardon my nail color, I don't know, my girls were after me to do a little different with my nails. Instead of going with the usual light shades that I usually go, they said, "Mom, you need a pop of color, make it nice and bright." And as I'm looking at it while I'm doing the voiceover, I can see those nails are quite bright. So I'm really sorry if it is bothering you, the bright colors, and make sure the next time I'll be putting my usual lighter blends. Anyway, moving on to the coloring, I missed out the handle there, so I did the same thing, added some BV color at the bottom and then added the red shades on top of it. And now you can see how it kind of looks a little muted in those corners. I wanted a little bit more texture and darkness, so I took this gray 90, which is a Prismacolor pencil, and I added it to those darker places. And then I also took this deep purple color, which is also from Prismacolors, and I added that to those edges as well. And you can see how much more deeper those shadow areas look now. And then I took the Carmine Red and I just kind of blended over, not really blended actually, those lines are quite squiggly. I'm just kind of doing small circular line, what you call circular coloring. So I'm creating some texture while I'm coloring, and now I'm done with all my coloring, and I'm just going to take the coordinating die and I'm just going to cut it using that. And here's that first white panel that I showed you initially, and this panel is cut to I think about 3 3/4 to 4 4 3/4, something like that. And then I'm just placing that toolbox at the bottom, and towards the edge of it I'm just kind of spraying the tools as if it's coming out of the toolbox. So I'm just adding a few of those tools just along that left edge, and then I'm just going to color those tools. I'm keeping the tool coloring to a very minimal color, so I'm just adding some BV23 where I know there would be shadows. And again, I'm keeping these tools as metal tools, so I don't want any colors to it except for the handles. And then I'm just blending the BV20 using the blender pen, so there are no harsh lines from the Copic markers. And I'm using the Slate Grey pencil, which is from Prismacolor, and just going over the same places where I placed the BV colors. And then I'm taking this French Grey 90% and I'm going to add that to the handles, just to give it a little bit of a variation from the tool itself, and that made it look much nicer, so that the red toolbox had a nice pop of color. Now I'm taking this sentiment. I think the sentiment reads, "There's no such thing as too many tools," which is so true for my husband. And I'm just going to emboss this using white embossing powder onto a gray cardstock, and I want to create a speech bubble, and I want the speech bubble to be quite wonky, so I'm not using any pencil or whatsoever. So I'm kind of creating a squarish speech bubble, just using a pencil, going around that speech bubble. And I really want this to be quite wonky because the illustration of these stamps are quite whimsical, so I wanted to keep that. And I'm just going to cut that using my scissors, and then I'm going to add a little bit of shading on the edges using the same Copic colors, BV23, and I'm going to blend that using BV20 and blend that using the colorless blender, so it takes away all the harsh edges of the blending pen. And that's pretty much it. And now it's time to kind of put this card together, and in order to do that, to make it interactive, and I wanted to keep it quite simple too, but before that there was a little red dot from my marker that I had made which was bothering me. So all I did is I took this black pen and added some tiny dots in different sizes all over the image. I'm sorry about my phone constantly pinging. I'm really sorry about that. I just made it low. Anyway, so I want this card to be interactive, so I added an action wobble behind this toolbox. So my idea is to show that this toolbox was shaking and all the tools that were inside the toolbox went flying all over the place. So you'll see that in a minute as soon as I'm done adding that toolbox. And there you go. It's like the tools are just falling out of it. And then I'm adding some pop dots onto the bubble, the speech bubble, and you see the designer paper there. That's from a pack that I've had in my stash for a long time, and so the colors theme for both my cards today is from this designer paper. The combination is from this designer paper. So I'm just taking that panel and I'm adding that to the designer paper panel using some foam adhesive, and then I'm just adhering that entire panel onto a top folding white note card. And here you go, and there is that card finished, and you can see how that action wobbles. It turned out really clean and simple, and I really like the way it looked. And here's the finished look of that card. Moving on to the second one here. I've slowed down the video quite a bit because this is quite I wanted to make sure that you understand what I'm doing here. So this is a standard half of the card, 8.5 by 11 cardstocks, which is cut at 5.5 by 8.5, and I'm scoring both ends using my score buddy, and this one is scored at 2 1/8 inches on both ends, and that'll create a standard gatefold card. And that's the whole idea, is just to create a standard 8 gatefold card. So I'm just creasing both the edges, both the sides where I created the scoring lines. I've already gone ahead and colored and die cut 2 toolbox and some tools, and here I've taken 2 gray cardstocks which I've cut to 3.5 by 3 inches tall, so 3.5 long side and 3 inches on the short side. And I'm just writing it down so you can see it. And then I'm going to score this on the 3.5 side at 1/2 inch on both of those on both the panels. So you can see here, so I'm just scoring it at 1/2 inch, not 1/4 inch, sorry, 1/2 inch on both of them, and then I'm just going to crease them just like that. So at the end of it you will have 2 panels with 1/2 inch score lines on one of the edge. And then I'm going to measure on the shorter side, on the 3 inch side, to the center. So the center would be 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to draw a little dot there, and then I'm going to measure from the dot to the inside another 1.5 inches. So, and I'm going to draw a line and join the 2 dots together. And then I'm going to draw, and I'm just writing what it is. So it's 1.5 inches tall in the center. And then I'm just going to take my ruler once again, and I'm going to join, kind of make it into a triangle. So create a line from the point of the straight line to the corners of this panel. So that will create like a triangle shape. And the idea is to cut this into a fishtail, and I want to make sure the measurements are absolutely correct. You want the measurements to be as much as possible very similar. And then it's easy. The second panel, I just put that over the uncut one and then just trace the fishtail, and then I just cut it. That made sure that both of them were cut at the same length and measurement. And then I took another white cardstock, which is cut at 3 by 3, so it's a square cardstock 3 by 3, and I put it aside. And I also cut another rectangle panel in white. This one is measuring 6 by 2 3/4 inches, and the designer paper that you see there, the plaid, is cut at 5.5 by 3 inches, and that's going to, this white panel is going to be laid over that designer paper. And I'm also going to score a 1/4 inch on both sides of this long white cardstock, which is cut at 6 by 2 3/4, so just a 1/4 inch on both the sides. And then you want to make sure that you're creasing both the ends really well with your bone folder. You want these score lines to be really creased well with your bone folder, and that makes it for the mechanics to work better. And then all I'm going to do is adhere this white panel onto the designer. But before I do that, I also want to create a circle. So I'm just going to put the first part of the card together. So so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those fishtail gray panels, and I'm just placing it. You don't have, you can place it on the top half or the bottom half. I'm just doing it somewhere in the center, and I'm going to add some score tape to that 1/2 inch score of both the fishtail banners that we created. You can just see there. And then I'm just going to remove the tape from the protective tape from it, and I'm just going to butt the edge of this to the crease of the gatefold card, so that you open the gatefold card inside, and to the inside crease you're going to butt that edge, and then you're going to close the flap on it, and then what happens is this fishtail will adhere to the flap just like that. You can see that. And we're going to repeat this again, and you want to make sure you're aligning them really well. Make sure you're aligning both the fishtails perfectly, so you're creating that diamond shape in the center. And you can see, there you go, and that's pretty much, you can see the mechanics of it coming together. I think this is called a shutter card. And then I'm going to take that white 3 by 3 panel, and I'm going to put it in the middle, and I kind of marked with my pencil so I know where exactly I want to shade in with my marker. So I'm using BV23 and BV20, and then the colorless blender, which I'm going to just go over that in squiggles. It doesn't look beautiful and clean, but that's okay, because all of that is going to be covered. It's only that center part that's going to be visible, like that, just like that. And it kind of gave a little marbly look to the surface. Now it's just time to adhere this square panel to the inside or to the back of the, so you're adhering directly to the inside of the gatefold card, and making sure you're centering it between these two fishtail banners, so you can see that little diamond in the middle. And now it's time to create a circle onto this panel, the tall panel that we created. So all I'm doing is I'm placing it in the center, making sure it's all aligned very well, and it's in the middle of it. And then I'm just going to shut the two fishtail banners, and then I'm just going to draw that diamond again using just a pencil, and this will give me an idea where I need to cut my circle. So I'm just going to center that circle in between the white panel, on the white panel, and I'm just going to die cut them both together. So here you go, I have both of those cut in the same place, and that's how it's going to be. And now before I adhere it, I want to add a little bit more to this white panel. I felt like it was too white, so I took these two tiny images. One is of a nail and the other one is a nut, and then I'm just stamping that using a color fuse ink called silver, and I'm just kind of randomly stamping both the images all over this this white panel. Now it's time to adhere this white panel onto the designer paper. Make sure you're not adhering the flap, that scored flap that you have. You want that flap kept as is. And then you are going to add score tape on that 1/4 inch flap. I'm just trying to place and make sure that everything is had it upside down, so it wasn't measuring up well, but when I turned it, flipped it around, it was perfect. So anyway, so now I'm just going to add some score tape to that 1/4 inch flaps that we created on the white panel. You can see there. And then I'm just going to this is an easy score tape which you can tear away easily, and I like that. So now I'm just making sure that I'm aligning them all, and then I'm just placing the panel on top of that circle, and now you can see how this mechanics works. So now for the top, the outside of the card, I've already gone ahead and stamped a toolbox and colored it, and then I want the sentiment. Now the sentiment that I'm using reads, "Dad, this year I got you a card. Next year I will give your tools back." So I'm just doing a partial stamping. So I'm just going to stamp, "Dad, this year I got you a card," using some VersaFine ink again, and because I want to emboss this part using white embossing powder. And you can see when I added the embossing powder, you can see a little bit of stray embossing in places that I didn't want, and it was just an easy fix. I just took a fluffy thin brush and then just flicked away the excess white embossing ink, and then I embossed it and I cut it using my trimmer into a thin label. And now it's time to put them together. So I just added some foam adhesive to the back of both the toolbox as well as the sentiment label, and then I'm just going to add this label right above the toolbox. And that little circle that you see is created using a wood grain designer paper from the same designer paper pack. And then now it's time to make, because it's a great gate fold card, you need a belly band to keep it shut. So I'm creating this belly band using another designer paper from the same pack, and I'm cutting it at 2 3/4 inches wide. Because it's not completely, it cannot create an entire band, I need 2 of them, so I cut 2 of them, and I'm just kind of folding that on the front, and then I'm just adhering the extra to the back, so it gives me it creates a belly band. It's easier to create this way, and then I just adhere both those edges to another strip, so that creates a belly band that goes around this white cardstock gate card. It is a little snug, but that's okay. You want it to be snug and tight so it keeps the gate closed. And then I'm just going to adhere this circle. Before I adhere the circle onto that, I have to do the inside of the card. So I'm just taking this second toolbox that I colored, and I'm just going to add glue just to the bottom. Do not add it anywhere, just to the bottom, and adhere it only on the white panel. Do not adhere it onto any part of the gray. Avoid the gray. If you put it on the gray, your mechanical will not work. So make sure you don't adhere glue anywhere there. And then I'm just filling in that inside panel, that colored panel that we added at the bottom. On that, I'm just gluing some of these tools that I have previously cut and colored and cut. And I'm going to also add a spanner outside on top of the toolbox, just like that. And then the remaining sentiment, which read, "Next year I'll give you your tool bags," I am going to adhere it inside right on top of that circle. Now it's time to finish off this card is by just adding that belly button, not the belly button actually, the belly band, and I'm going to add the circle using some foam adhesive, and I'm going to just center it right in the middle of that belly band. And here's the look of that card in action. So when you open it, there you go, the tools are revealed, which the son or the daughter took away without probably telling the dad, I don't know. But anyway, so that's how I made this shutter card, and I'll show you. And here's the look of the outside of that shutter card, obviously. And here's the look of the 2 cards that we created. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.